So these are my parents here, my mum and dad. My mum was a nurse at the Southern Hospital in Liverpool, which doesn't exist anymore. My dad was a lab technician at the time, went on to be a haematologist and lecture in haematology. My mum has only just retired from nursing and she's in her 70s, so she was my inspiration to be a nurse. The person that I am makes me the nurse that I am, and likewise the ability or the opportunity to work with patients shapes the person that I am. So in the first wave, I was working as a junior sister on one of the surgical wards, and the feeling of responsibility not only for my patients but for the staff that worked on the ward was quite overwhelming, and everything that you knew about how you should be nursing is being questioned, and I felt really hopeless and out of control.
Tell me about the job you were doing when the pandemic hit in 2020.
I was the manager of a residential care home for older people. It's run by the local authority, and I'd been doing that exact job for 11 years when the pandemic hit. In Penarth, 33-bedded care home. The kids think it's tacky, but I love it because family means everything to me. Our memories mean everything to me, and I look at the photos. So this one's Disney World, back with the grandchildren. I've got 3 sisters, and everyone says there's always one person in the family that is the carer, and I think that's me. Out of the 4 of us, I've cared for my dad, like I said, and I cared for my mum when she passed away with cancer. And I'm always the one that's caring for the grandchildren and the children, and I just think I've got that personality. I have become my job, and my job has become me. I think Dawn, the care home manager, comes home, and sometimes my husband says, "You're not talking to your staff now, mind." And I think it definitely defines who you are, and not in a bad way, but you merge into the whole. I know if you'd have asked me this 20 years ago, I'd have said no. It's a job. It's a great job. It's a job I enjoy. It's a good salary, but it's become my life. It has become my life. Looking back, it's definitely the last 27 years have become who I am. I'm a care home manager. The first time COVID got into the home, it was 1 resident and 2 of my staff initially. And you felt like you'd failed everyone. It was really difficult. It's easy to even say it now, but at the time, I just felt like I'd failed somehow and had allowed it into the home. The feelings of failure and not knowing what I was doing really affected me personally, because I've always been in control. And I think the lack of control and the lack of being able to keep people safe, which is my job, was really difficult.
One day, one of the nurses who's on our resuscitation team came to the ward and to explain that the new protocol that we were working from at that time meant that if there was a cardiac arrest situation, only people who'd been fit tested with the appropriate PPE were allowed to do chest compressions. To ask a nurse to stand by with somebody needing CPR while you're waiting for other people to arrive, that was one of the darkest days for me. It was really, really hard to hear. Almost without exception, all of the staff said that they wouldn't be adhering to that protocol, that if somebody collapsed in front of them, that they would have to step in, because that's not only as a nurse but as a human being how you would hope you would respond to that situation. But you are then putting yourself at risk, which is what they were trying to avoid. So it was very, very difficult, and that feeling has never really gone away, how I felt that day.
I was crying a lot. I was, like I say, not wanting to go to work, which was really new for me. Felt like I couldn't cope when I was there. I felt like I was making bad decisions. I felt like I was snapping. And then one day I went shopping and a car backed out of a parking space and almost hit me. And I remember getting into my car, sitting there and crying because I wished it had hit me, because I didn't want to go to work and I would have rather the car hit me. But I would have done anything not to go to work. I hated going to work and I hated the failure day after day. It was really difficult. After having the counselling and going back to work, and still having to work full time, I was really struggling. And that's when you, Alison and Simon came along, and I was offered the retreat.
I remember when you came to the retreat and you were really nervous that first day.
God, listen to this bit. I was like, oh my God, because
This is a diary.
This is me, yeah.
Oh gosh.
Really anxious before leaving, almost cried at the house because I didn't want to go on my own without Matthew. I mean, we've been together since we were 16 and we hate each other most of the time.
It was exactly what I needed at that time. A time to be with other people who knew exactly what I was going through, because they had gone through exactly the same thing. And it was a really safe space to talk about stuff that we had experienced. Because even though everybody had had their individual experiences, there was so much common ground there that it felt like a really easy space to talk.
We sat in front of a roaring fire in a circle, in a semicircle around the fire, and we shared our stories and why we were there and what experience we'd had. It felt good to get it out. It felt liberating. It really did. And it also felt, listening to the stories of others, that you were not alone, that everyone had different experiences to different levels. But for some reason, we all felt quite similar, even though they were different experiences, and that felt reinforcing that it was okay to feel that way, and that people empathised with you and there was no shame.
There were feelings within me that I was able to express but didn't understand how they were really affecting me. And the concept of moral injury, I'd never heard of that before. But once it was explained, it was so obvious that that's what was a big part of how I was feeling. The repercussions of those days on the retreat have lasted all this time. It's made me look at things differently.
I didn't want to leave, and I don't think anybody did. You felt a sadness that you were leaving after the 4 days. It was like saying goodbye to your family at the beginning when you were travelling to the retreat. That was like that again, but you'd only known people for 4 days. It was bizarre. It was really bizarre. On the last day, we wrote a letter to ourselves, each of us, on how we felt at that time, and it was just such a transformation. Dear Dawn, you have come so far since arriving here just 4 days ago. You've stopped crying so much when you're talking. I became in control and stronger. My compassion came back. My drive to make a difference came back. And now it's changed tact in a way that I want to do the best I can until I leave, and I want to pass it over to someone else so that they can carry on what I started. And how you react to them. You're strong and brave, you're loved, and you are loved for who you are.
Having been able to take a step back to look after myself has allowed me to continue nursing. If I hadn't done those things, I probably would have just stopped nursing altogether. I think it's difficult when your profession is caring for other people to lose sight of the fact that you can't pour from an empty jug, that you have to look after yourself. The stronger you are, the more you can be there for your patients and other people.